Happy New Year from Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. I'm your host, Joshua Solomon, and with me as always is JP Marzullo. Damn it, I did it! I forgot! The Honorable JP Marzullo. Getting his title.
Hey, that's all right.
Sorry, buddy.
No, that's okay. That's okay. So I'm trying to figure out why it's so windy. I thought these people that were trying to control the climate and having all these new rules and stuff would have made a difference. I mean, between freezing our butt off here and those poor people, and this is not a joke, the poor people in California who've lost their homes, a couple of people have already died, and I think before the show you talked a little bit about what Trump had said 5 years ago that's kind of resurfacing, so maybe we can start there.
It just boggles the mind that folks will refuse to listen to good advice simply because it comes from someone on the opposite end of the political spectrum.
Yeah.
Right. So in 2018, there was a bunch of wildfires. There's wildfires every year. This is a perennial issue now in California. But in 2018, when Trump was still president, he went out and visited the destruction of the wildfires, and there's pictures of him and Governor Newsom at the time, and Trump told Newsom, said, you need to do something about this. You need to get responsible forestry management, which includes actually cutting trees down, right? We don't just save trees. We have to cut trees down for responsible for management, and we have to clear the underbrush. That's part of, that's environmentally sound. But Trump literally told him, stop listening to the environmentalist wackos who are telling you not to cut stuff down, because that's wrong, because it will bite you in the butt. And there are plenty of Twitter, now X, posts that are now resurfacing from then President Trump. In fact, it was November 3rd, 2018 or 2019 was the specific date of the Trump Twitter post, where he outlined that you have to start clearing the underbrush, and he tagged Newsom in it. You need to clear the underbrush, you need to focus on responsible forestry management, and Trump was very specific in 2018, or 2000, in the Twitter post, he was very specific. You need to open up the water lines from Northern California and get them all the way down to Southern California where the water is needed, instead of pumping that stuff out to sea. And what's happening is there's a whole, if you're in water management, you would understand this, but there's a whole system of dams and rivers and reservoirs, both man-made and natural, that are controlled by a series of dams and water management. There's an entire science behind how you get water from the mountains down into the desert areas where these people live for some reason, which is Los Angeles is in a desert. And Trump said you have to get that water down here, and there's a whole bunch of water being dumped, fresh water going pumped right out to sea, instead of diverting down south where it's needed. And so here we are 5 years later. Trump is about to come into presidency. Newsom is now overseeing another massive fire issue in California. And in this case, people are dying. The underbrush is the problem, and all the fire hydrants are empty. The water district said today that they were pumping at 4 times capacity last night in order to try and keep up with it, and they haven't knocked it down a bit. If you look at the status of the fire is still at 100% uncontained, and they are out of water. They are literally out of water. There's nothing anybody can do. It's just time to get out.
Yeah.
Again, there's a 5-year period between when Trump said that these things should happen, or else this will happen. You had 5 years, Governor Newsom, and you blew it.
Yeah, I mean, this is, you're right. They have them every year. Then you have the Santa Ana winds that come in. And that's been routine. The question, I've always asked this question, never really got an answer, is that how are these started? I mean, what goes
They're
on?
Man-made. There's people out there camping and whatnot. We had a brush fire here in New Hampshire today.
Yeah, I saw
on I-93 in Derry.
Yeah, they had
right.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
I mean, when it's windy like this, people are out there and they're lighting fires to keep warm.
Yeah.
Homeless and whatnot.
Right.
But this fire in California was man-made. I don't know the details behind it, but I know that it was man-made. So, and they know where it started. So.
Yeah, I mean, tonight's show was going to be to talk about what's happened last year, and kind of take a look at last year in the country, not just politically, but certainly things like this. And you know, there's so much going on that we don't even know where to start. I'll start with this: is that the Representative Terry Roy was unable to make it tonight, and I hope you're doing better. You're feeling better. And now we have to make up some time that you that you should have done. So I hope you can see. Sorry, Terry. He knows I'm giving him a hard time. I just want to let people see my Texas sweatshirt. And if your son Sam was here, he wouldn't be very happy. He's a big Bulldog fan, which I am as well.
He's not a Longhorns fan.
But I'd like to see Texas win, so that's going back a little bit. And that'll be fun. It'll be a good time. But let's look at a couple of things. I think that we both have lists of things I'm sure we want to talk about. But I'd like to kind of focus on the state a little bit before we talk about the national stuff, because there's sure enough to talk about national things that occurred. So some of the issues, and I was hoping Terry'd be able to let us know what's going on now. He can call us. That's not bad. But so here's what I think one of my biggest issues this year was biological men playing in women's sports. And how do we approach that, and what do we do? And I think we've done the right thing. We're not allowing that. But you know, some of the major, like,
so we had the governor sign a couple of bills this year, right? And I think one of them was keeping men out of women's locker rooms at the university, I believe.
Yes.
And I think they only really had control over things that were state funded.
Yeah. Well, that's yes. I mean, and part of it is too is that good old Charlie Baker, former governor of down south from the Mass area, he's in charge of all the NCAA sports, and he was pressured into agreeing to let trans play in sports. He's found a way around it, I think. I saw something on TV, he was interviewed. So, you know, these organizations that are allowing it, to me, is shameful. I mean, if you have a young girl who wants to play a sport and spends her entire high school, maybe even her elementary school, playing one sport, so she becomes good enough at it so that she could get a scholarship to go to college, and then some biological man decides that he's like 516th swimmer in the country, so he decides he can't beat any of the men, so I'll, you know, claim to be a woman and win, and then take scholarships away from girls. So that was really one of my biggest issues, and I think we did pretty well with that. We were able to stop some of that anyway.
We talked about it a lot, and and we had several detransitioners come and speak at the State House.
Yes, we did.
With some of these, and so that was good. It's good to open people's eyes to these things, right? From both ends of it, right?
Yeah.
So you get, you know, if you as a parent have a daughter who has spent her entire athletic career becoming the best, being the best, competing for scholarships, and then just to watch it all get thrown away. How do you as a parent feel about that? I don't care how woke you are. You can see how hard your own flesh and blood works, and then you are just okay with men going into the locker room with a full set of genitals, mind you, and then so there's that side of it. And then there's the other side of it. So now you have folks that transitioned, and now as adults, they transitioned as children because they were encouraged by their teachers, their woke school boards, and even their parents. And now that as adults, they're like, wait a minute, now that I'm fully matured, my brain is fully matured, I realize that I was abused as a child. Like that was abuse, making me take puberty blockers and all that stuff. So that's the other side of this.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think I've highlighted it in the past. I don't know if I highlighted it exactly this year, but there was a study out of university in England that tracked gays, lesbians, transgenders over the course of a 10-year period. And what it found was that they asked folks to identify themselves at the beginning.
Right.
And then they went back to them after about 3 years. And then they went back to them about 10 years.
Yeah.
At the 10-year mark, people who had identified as gay or lesbian in the beginning, about 80% of them or so were still gay or lesbian 10 years later.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
The other 20%, well, I went to college, I did some crazy shit, and sorry. But then you get into the bisexual and whatnot, and the numbers kind of stay the same. But you get into the transgender, where folks who identified as transgender 10 years later, only about 3 or 4% of them were still identifying as transgender. The rest of them were saying, wow, I was on the road to screwing my life up completely.
Yeah, and we had...
I mean, it really, that study, again, I didn't make the study. It was done by a very liberal college in England. Right? It wasn't biased in any way towards my side of the argument.
Right.
But that study underscores the fact that this is not appropriate to push on anyone who's a minor. Period.
Right. I agree. I think it's child abuse. So that was one issue. The other thing was Terry Roy, Representative Roy, was the chair of Criminal Justice Committee. And he was on several times talking about bail reform. And he made some, they've made some progress in that, and he's done a good job with it, but there's still more to be done. And so I know that the new Senator President, Senator Carson, kind of did a shout out to Terry and said that she's comfortable that it's in his hands because he's done such a good job with it, and then she'll support that. Not that we would think that the Senate wouldn't, seeing that we've taken the Senate over even bigger this time. So that was the other thing, and just the elections alone was really encouraging, not only here in the state of New Hampshire, but in our country. I mean, it was unbelievable what Trump was able to do, and he won every single swing state, and nobody predicted that. So
what we need to do next time around is make New Hampshire a swing state at the very minimum.
Yeah, I mean, But in the State House now, I mean, we control everything now. We have the Senate, Executive Council, and the House. The House numbers are still pretty close, but they're not like one vote.
Not as close as they were the last term.
And what I'm hearing is that they're a little concerned with the different caucuses. Like you have the Freedom Caucus, you have the Liberty Caucus, because they're Republicans, but they're not necessarily going to go along with the conservative branch or the people that have been in office for a long time, and that could change the things. That could change the votes.
Do you think we need to kind of, as a party, is to have some sort of a unification discussion where we say, okay, let's take these different caucuses and figure out where we align and reduce the number of caucuses and reduce the number of disparities within our own party going forward?
Yeah, and I think there's been attempts like that made in the past too, but now those caucuses are larger. Like Free Stater Caucus is larger.
Well, that one's going to continue to grow. Unfortunately, we're kind of at the mercy of that one.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, we know some of those players.
But there's nothing wrong.
I mean, look at Mark Warden. I mean, you couldn't find. He was a Free Stater, libertarian, but Mark Warden at least has some common sense. I'm not saying the rest don't, but in order to get things done, you're absolutely right. If you don't sit down and negotiate with your own people for the direction you want to go and make sure you have the support, then you're not unifying them. All you're doing is pushing them further apart. So that's one of the concerns that I think we should look at. And you're right, it'd be good to sit down, and they do that, by the way. They do sit down and talk to them. Sometimes it may be more pressure them to vote a certain way, but you have Jason Osborne as the the Speaker for the House and Majority Speaker of the House, and he's got part of that group too that are with him. And so I'm hoping that we make the right moves this year and we don't get sucked into personalities, but that we really take a look at what's best for the state. Kelly Ayotte will be inaugurated tomorrow. I thought it was going to be live, but they're going to show, President Carter's funeral. Yeah, and President Biden is going to, speak.
If that's what you call it.
Yeah, if that's what you call it. And so they're going to put that on our local station, our New Hampshire station, and you can stream Kelly's inauguration. Honestly, I like them to flip that. I would like us to at least, this is our state. I'd like to see what she says, what the reaction is, rather than streaming it.
The local stations should absolutely be highlighting local political events.
Yeah.
Especially the swearing in of a conservative governor.
Yep.
And if folks want to watch what's going on down in Washington, well, you've got CNN, MSNBC, Fox. Right. They've got
you
all
can
those
see
choices.
it anywhere.
It's not as though WMUR is going to be competing with them. You're going to be giving an audience here in New Hampshire what they want.
Yeah, and
there's no reason for that.
It's owned by ABC, so there's where we run into that problem. And you can look at what's going on. I would love to have seen that live rather than have to stream it. And I can stream, you're right. There are other stations. If I really am so want to follow what's going on and everything else with the Carter situation and his death, then I can look at it. I mean, I can find it.
On the other hand, the speeches and eulogies about Carter tomorrow are going to be absolutely entertaining. Because, as I mentioned earlier,
I agree.
We've all, both sides of the political spectrum, have agreed for decades that Carter was unanimously the worst president this country's ever seen, or at the very least, the worst president we've seen in our lifetime.
Until now.
But the day he passed, and I'm not taking any pleasure in anyone dying. I mean, Carter was a very good humanitarian, but the day he passed, all of a sudden, his presidency has been sainted. Right? All of a sudden, this is a phrase you've never heard in the last 45 years. You've never heard anyone say that Carter's foreign policy was a long and lasting and absolute success.
Yeah.
Yet they're writing articles about Carter's lasting foreign policy legacy, which is an absolute joke. And if they can do that, Lord knows what type of phony praise they're going to lavish on him tomorrow, and take advantage of the situation in a political manner.
And that's what bothers me. Really.
That's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
We've seen the liberals do this before. We saw one of the most egregious incidences like that is when Clinton gave a eulogy for a cabinet member back in the 90s. But Clinton, and it was done in a large arena like the Verizon or SNU, sorry. It was done in a large arena like that, and it was just speaker after speaker, and they barely said anything about the deceased. Right. They spent the entire time as making it a platform. And my fear is, it's not a fear, it's a fact. It's going to happen. They're going to do this tomorrow. It's going to be platform. They're going to take jabs at the incoming president. They're going to take jabs and they're not going to focus on Carter and his humanitarian Habitat for Humanity.
Yeah.
I mean, that is probably the biggest legacy. You said it.
Yeah.
His biggest
I mean,
legacy.
I definitely think he.
I remember seeing videos of him. He had the Georgia coveralls from the
Yep.
peanut farm, and he's out there. He's got a hammer hooked onto his, and he's out there building houses, and he was there every single time.
And he's also a graduate of the Naval Academy.
He's a Naval Academy
So
graduate.
he's got,
He served on submarines. I believe he was,
Yes.
and they've named submarines after him.
Yep.
So there's a lot of good distinguished things that we can say about Carter, and we can keep it to Carter, and we can go on for hours about the good things he does without bashing, his horrible presidency and his handling of Iran and whatnot. We don't have to go into any of that. We can still have wonderful eulogies about this man without making it political, and I could even do that myself, but it's going to happen. We're going to see all of the shots, all the pot shots being taken yet tomorrow.
And that's the sad part.
It's going to be horrible.
Yeah, and he did some things for New Hampshire that were really cool. Like, he's the first person who actually went door to door and met people in their homes. He was the first politician to do that in New Hampshire, and that sort of set the stage from then on how politicians got elected in New Hampshire. And I really respect him for that. That, here's an unknown person, a peanut farmer who comes to New Hampshire, and they had no idea who this guy was, but he started knocking on doors. He'd meet people at diners. So he sort of started that. So, whether you like him or not, he's done some things that they could point out, right, without making it political, because that's not political. And as far as
outreach, that's community outreach.
Yeah,
and it doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on. That's something that we value here in New Hampshire. Come talk to me. You want me to vote for you? Come talk to me.
Exactly. So let's move on from that. I think we're
not going to talk about his rabbit incident?
I don't know. You can talk about it if you want. I'll be right back.
All right. So
what other things do you have? Because I'm taking up all the time here, but I did want to bring up a couple of things in the state. And so Kelly will be inaugurated tomorrow. It'll be a great event. It'll be packed. I hope it's safe based on some of the things we just saw happen on national TV, the New Orleans incident. And unfortunately, I think we're going to have more of this happen.
We've had a year of bad things happening. Well, bad things happen every year, but it seems to be getting a little bit worse with the rhetoric, and the rhetoric is driving individuals on the extreme ends of their platforms to do things, and folks are leaving behind manifestos outlining exactly how they were radicalized. I'm doing this because of this, and if you read through, it's like, well, that's a lie they heard in the media. That's another lie they heard in the media, and they're using it as a reason, right? So we'll go back to the transgender issue. We've had 3 transgenders, children or adolescents, folks under the age of 25, from both sexes, go on mass shootings,
schools,
and then they leave behind these manifestos. That's it. But then you get that radicalization, and then it just gets amped up to being 2, not 1, but 2 attempts on Trump's life, starting in July.
And then you have the CEO of a healthcare company shot, killed.
Right. And again, everybody's got this manifesto. Everybody, and when you read these things, these are things that they're listening to on TV, right? And folks are being radicalized against this. And half of them are lies. People complaining about the 2025 project. Well, it had nothing to do with Trump. It didn't even have anything to do with the RNC, the Republican Party, right? It's just some group made a list of things that they'd like to see happen. That's all it was.
It's
literally a think tank. And the Democrats do that too.
Oh, yeah.
They have their project. They have the Lincoln Project. They claim that's a Republican project, but it's not.
No.
It's a Rhino Project.
Yeah.
Or undocumented Democrat. I'm not going to say rhinos. You know, Chris Ager was on. He says he doesn't like to use the term rhino to refer to folks in our own party. So I'm going to call them undocumented Democrats instead of rhinos. That's my new term. Undocumented Democrats.
Well, you know, here's the thing.
That's the politically correct.
I think, Chris.
But that radicalization has led to, again, these folks going after the president or President Trump. They leave behind these manifestos. That is the media mind virus taking over, and there's just so many things that just don't add up to all of these things here. I mean, we can become a conspiracy theorist on all of these things. None of which the Ryan Ruth, the fellow who the second assassin on the golf course,
right?
He made the rounds. People in Washington know who this guy is. In fact, Joe Biden gave the Presidential Medal of Freedom to a man, last week?
Yeah.
And there's a photograph of that man who received the medal meeting with Ryan Ruth. This man was photographed with, and so you have to ask the questions. How these people are all connected. That's my conspiracy theories coming out. Everybody knows I have them, but
and a lot of
how can you not be a conspiracy theorist if the person who tried to assassinate Trump was photographed with Man B, and Man B was given a Presidential Medal of Freedom by President Biden? There's a direct line of communication there.
Yeah. I mean, the medals he gave out were disgraceful. He gave one to Hillary Clinton.
He gave one to Liz Cheney. Well, here's what I think. He gave the Presidential Medal of Freedom to Liz Cheney. Well, she's obviously an American hero. She's obviously above reproach. She's a Medal of Freedom winner.
Yep.
You don't need to pardon her for anything. There's no preemptive pardon in her future because she's a hero. Yet, mark my words, folks, we're less than 2 weeks away. She's going to get herself a preemptive pardon because Biden gave her the Presidential Medal of Freedom for investigating January 6th, which Biden knows that Cheney committed a whole bunch of crimes, including witness tampering, and she deserves to be investigated for such, but Biden's going to pardon her as well. So she's being given this medal for a crime she committed, and the person giving her the medal knows she committed that crime and is going to pardon her for it.
Yeah.
Call me back if I'm wrong, okay?
Prove me wrong, right? Yeah. Who was the other one that she gave to that I was like shocked? There was.
He gave one to Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, no, but there's somebody else. There was somebody else too.
There was another January 6th investigator that was given.
Well, you could see that
I'm surprised Hunter
really
didn't get one
attention to that, you know. But so let's talk about some other things that you'd like to see in the state. You know, you'd like, that you're happy that happened, or maybe you're not. Maybe
well, I'm happy we had the discussions about the transgender issue, and it put the kibosh on you know, we maybe didn't get as far as we needed to go, but we did put the kibosh on some of these radical leftist bills that came through.
Yep. How about the way they're dressing? I just heard something in the news that they're showing up at the State House in bib overalls
I didn't know that was taking place here in New Hampshire.
Oh yeah, no, this happened here.
You know, we talk about John Fetterman at the national level from Pennsylvania. He's showing up dressed like, you know, JP in a hoodie. He's showing up to Congress.
He's my hero. You know, here's a guy who I thought was totally out of it, who seems to have more common sense than any of the Democrats in the state.
But when you're a congressman or a senator, there is a certain decorum that you have to maintain, and he refuses. He shows up in sweatpants and sweatshirts, and they've made an exception for him. Everybody else does. There's not. I don't think there's any.
No, he's
others at the national level, but that casualness has started to infect the New Hampshire State House, and so.
They try,
hopefully we've got some rules coming in.
Yeah, I think there's a bill coming through that Janine Notter just put in, and it's more about decorum and having some pride in our state house, and not showing up like that. There's no reason to, you know. And I think it's disgraceful, to be quite honest. Even if it were somebody on our side of the aisle doing that, I wouldn't be happy with that.
I mean, you have to at least dress neatly, right? Because there's different views on what is formal and what's not formal, and what should be formal and what shouldn't be formal. And to me, the absolute minimum is a collared shirt, even if it's a polo shirt. But a collared shirt with no markings other than maybe just something small.
Yeah, rock, paper, hand grenades.
Right.
Nothing this big.
Right. But you know, single color, right? Or for men, maybe it is a tie. You should wear a tie when you're in the chamber and you're going to speak and you're going to represent hundreds, if not thousands, of people back home. If you're representing these people, you need to dress as such. But on the other hand, you know, there's other ways of looking at it. If you get a nice, brand new pair of pressed jeans, blue jeans, they can look nice with the right shoes. And
we never stand up because we do have those nice pressed new blue jeans on.
But sometimes I do wear a nice pair of blue jeans and a nice collared shirt, right? And that looks good. I mean, that looks good on a cowboy. That's a Western look. But and folks, what, you're wearing jeans? I said, well,
New Hampshire.
I said, what do you think the CEO of Levi's wears to formal events? The man wears jeans, right? Because
or Jobs, who wore, you know, like black.
That's standard dress in the boardroom at Levi's, right? And so you can, but you there has to be some sort of minimum standard, and I think the standard should be at the very least a collared shirt. Or even a jacket. I mean, there are restaurants in this state you can't get into without wearing a jacket and tie.
Yeah.
Right? So,
not so much in New Hampshire, but I've certainly, you know,
the point is, there are environments where you need to dress appropriately, and the State House is one of those.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so you got that.
I want to talk about bail. We talked about bail reform with Terry several times this year.
Yep.
And, you know, we talked about, you know, do we just roll it all the way back? Or do we have to take it in increments, or do we have to change what we're doing? And so, you know, one of the things with bail reform is the catch and release policy.
Yeah.
Right? Folks are being released with $0 bail.
Yep.
Right? There's no cash associated with it. There's no hurdle to jump over in order to get released on bail, right? You sign a piece of paper, I promise to come back,
right?
And then they let you go after you've just committed a serious crime, whether it be a DWI or even a sex offense. We've seen sex offenders get rolled into the station, got their picture taken, signed a piece of paper, back out on the street.
It just happened.
Doing it the same night.
Yeah.
Right? We've had folks get a DWI 3 times in one day right here in Manchester.
Yeah.
Right? So we talk about this whole bail reform and rolling it back, and we can see the consequences of not doing it. And what I'd like to see is what happened in California after November. So California had Prop 41 back in like 2014 or 2015, which made it a misdemeanor, or not even a misdemeanor, to steal anything less than $1,000.
Yeah, $1,000.
Anything less than $1,000.
Yep.
Yeah, and you're out on the street, right? They don't even prosecute. There's no prosecution. So California's been rampant with crime.
Smash and grab.
Right, smash and grabs. You got videos of people just walking into Walmart or any store, or even high-end stores, taking stuff off the shelves and walking out, and you're not even allowed to follow them.
Right.
You're not allowed to, you call the police, and police like, was it more than $1,000 worth? No, it was a $600 leather jacket. Tough. Let them go. Right?
Yeah.
Right? So you can go in there, and as long as you're under $1,000 at every store you go to.
So you bring a calculator with you.
Right.
And you're adding up what you stole.
And so Prop 36 passed in California overwhelmingly by like 75 to 80%. Prop 36 rolled to that completely back. It is now a felony. And Orange County has run with it.
Yeah.
And so the first couple of it, if you go online, you can search for videos. It's hilarious to see these criminals being handcuffed, thrown into the back of a cruiser, and the camera in the cruiser is catching them talking to each other. And what just happened? How come you arrested me? We didn't steal $1,000. New laws. And Orange County doesn't play around, right? And one thief actually, on body cam, asked the police officer, said, well, can you take me to LA County? He's like, no, you committed the crime in Orange County. You're going to be prosecuted in Orange County.
Right.
And so they're not getting bailed out anymore.
Yeah.
So it took a citizen proposition to go on the ballot statewide in order to fix the problem that Gavin Newsom wouldn't fix.
Yeah.
And so hopefully we're not at that state.
No,
right? But that's the kind of thing that bail reform can devolve into, and so it's important that we stay on top of it and we roll this back and we make it so that there are penalties when you commit a crime, that you're not going to be back out on the street within an hour or two committing your second or third DWI in 24 hours.
Yeah, I think if people remember that Governor Ayotte was the Attorney General, and she's the one who put in the criminal that killed Barnes, the police officer. I think that was his name. Can't remember his name. I apologize for that. But so I don't think we're going to have a problem with that. I really don't. I think she's going to put her foot down too when it gets there.
As long as we have to stay on top of it.
Yeah, and I think
because we're going to get the perennial bills. I mean, didn't somebody submit a bill to allow the committees to dump radical bills?
Well, it wasn't necessarily radical. It was
extremist.
Extreme. I don't remember the name of it, but bills that were just wasting people's time. Kind of thing.
So we've talked about this. We've talked about this plenty of times on this show over the last 4 or 5 sessions.
Yeah.
About the fact that the House submits somewhere on the order of 800 bills,
1,000 bills
every year, and the Senate submits a couple of hundred. And between them, you're looking at 1,000, 1,200 bills that these folks have to go through every year, and a lot of them are complete garbage. They're complete. They're fringe extremists, but the fact that they're submitted means that we have to spend the time on them. We have to give them time, right? There's a certain
people
amount
have to come in and testify. They have to be able to do
administrative baloney that has to go in behind it, and so someone has submitted it. Did it go anywhere? Are they going to allow it to go?
No, I think it's still being discussed. There's still. Don't forget, we have just sworn in a whole new.
Right, and that's only been a couple of days. So,
it's a little longer than that. But so that'll come up, and once they start going through that, I think it's going to help, because I tried to get a bill put through when I was in the House that would say basically if you propose one bill, you have to take 10 away that are useless.
Right.
Right. Because there was so many bills, and that's what caused, and I'm sure I know Gary talked about this, was the overnight thing where they locked the doors and you couldn't leave until you finished it. You got to
sit there and do a couple of hundred a day.
And that's nuts.
If we get to this point where we can have a rule change that allows the committees to say, okay, these bills are complete garbage, and allow the committee to say, okay, wastebasket that,
Yeah.
then that alone will reduce the load
Yes.
that has to go over on crossover day,
Yep.
right? That,
Yep.
but hopefully that will also discourage folks from even submitting the garbage bills in the next term.
So yeah, here's what happens. So I learned this my first year in the State House, is that when you're a new state rep, you may have promised your constituents when you were running for office.
Right, you got. I'm going to make my mark.
I want this.
Hit the
I'll
ground
put it
running
in for you. I'll put it in for you, and that's what happens. And I learned that the best thing to do the first year is just keep quiet, learn as much as you can, and then the second year you could speak up about things. But that was the biggest problem, is they want to be, they want to make their constituents proud of them, and they have to run in 2 years. So after the first year, the constituent's going to say, "You never put that bill in. How come?" And that's what happens.
Right.
And so that's got to stop. Let's talk about some of the fun things, like maybe Trudeau's recent, the fact that I think it's really, I'm actually, President Trump is a negotiator, and he's a master at it. So some of the things he says is just to set up the next step of the negotiation, like changing the name of the Panama Canal, which I think is a good idea, but maybe even taking Greenland over by force. And then he said he would not rule out using the military to take over Greenland. But what people forgot about, wasn't there didn't we get Alaska through negotiations with the foreign country, and there were several other things that happened. So Trudeau was an interesting one, because right after he said that he would rather call him governor, they could be the 51st state, Trudeau all of a sudden is leaving. He resigned.
Right. Well, it wasn't all of a sudden. So if you remember, it didn't get a lot of traction when it first occurred, but after Trump won the election, it was literally the following weekend. Like
he went to Mar-a-Lago, right?
Like there was a whole series of events that started taking place around the world. Right, Hamas is suddenly ready to negotiate. Right, and folks are like, okay, Daddy's coming home, right? and we better straighten ourselves up. But it was like the next weekend, Trump hosted a whole bunch of folks at Mar-a-Lago, including Trudeau, and had private conversations with leaders or representatives of leaders from around the world. And one of them was Trudeau face-to-face. He had a face-to-face with Trudeau. And he said, look, Canada and the United States are inseparable. We share a border. That border is very porous. We have some issues on that border, not as much as we do on the southern border, but we do have issues on that border, and we expect Canada to help fix those issues. And Canada is really getting a free ride on trade, right? Like we're very close on trade, and Canada's getting a free ride, and there's a lot of things that Canada is benefiting from that are hurting American taxpayers. And so Trump said, you need to fix that. You need to step it up on your border patrol. You need border control and border patrol. You need to fix these issues that are costing American taxpayers. And if you don't fix those issues, then I'm going to add tariffs, right? And we're gonna fix the issue for you, because you're not going to keep costing American taxpayer money. And so those are the things that Trump wants to do. He wants to fix that relationship so that Canada's not taking advantage of us. Now, it doesn't mean that we're not going to be Canada's ally. Doesn't mean we're not going to be Canada's best trade partner. What it means is that we're going to fix the unevenness of that relationship. And Trump basically said, you can either fix the relationship, you can deal with the tariffs, or if you rely on the United States that much and you can't govern your own country by yourself, then I'll just call you governor and you can be the 51st state, right? And so that sarcasm, like start running your country as an independent country that doesn't rely so much on our money, and everything will be fine. I'll call you prime minister. But if you don't start running your country that way, and you continue to want to take a free ride off of American taxpayers, then I'm just going to call you Governor Trudeau. And he did that. That was like the week after the election.
Yeah, I forgot
right?
about that.
And so now people are all about, oh, he calls him Governor Trudeau, and Canada's going to be the 51st state. Oh, that is so horrible of Trump to say those things. He's such a rude person. No, he's very calculated in when he makes these statements. And so a week or two after that initial meeting, Trudeau's finance minister resigned. She saw the writing on the wall. She knew that Trump was right, that she can't continue to manage this disaster going downhill, so she resigned. And now the rest of Trudeau's party has gotten on board and said, okay, we're gonna have to remove you. And Trudeau, the other day, what's today, Wednesday? So Monday, he said, okay, I'll resign.
Yeah.
But he didn't really resign. What he did was he used a little parliamentary trick. He kind of dissolved the current government until a new government's in place. And until that new government is in place, he's still prime minister. So he didn't leave on Monday. He is still the prime minister of Canada and will be for several months, because that's how long it's going to take to form a new government in Canada.
Yeah. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that's actually happening. So it's a big snow job, but the point is that when Trump starts calling people names, he's not doing it to be rude. He's not doing it to be disrespectful. He's doing it to start the conversation, just like you said.
Yeah.
And that conversation will inevitably go exactly the way Trump wants it to go, because he's the master negotiator, right? And so he started calling Trudeau Governor Trudeau. It highlighted all of Canada's financial problems, and it resulted in Canada saying, you know what? The man's right. We need a change. We need to fix ourselves in order to have that relationship with the United States. And that's exactly what's happening. It's genius,
Yeah.
right? When he called Kim Jong-un, when he called him Rocket Man,
Oh, yeah.
and he kept calling him Rocket Man, that just got under his skin. And what happened after that? What happened was, for the first time since the Korean War, an American president goes and meets face to face with the dictator of North Korea, and they come out of it in a friendly manner. And the man stopped his shenanigans for the remainder of Trump's term.
Yeah.
And didn't start shooting off rockets and start spouting off his mouth until Trump was gone.
Yep.
Right?
Yes.
And like I said, Daddy's coming home, and North Korea is going to have to come to terms with that again, right? So when Trump starts calling people Rocket Man, starts calling Trudeau Governor Trudeau in the 51st state, he's doing it for a reason. It's a very calculated reason, and he's doing the same thing with the Panama Canal and Greenland for national security purposes, because right now the Panama Canal is controlled by the Chinese, and that is a problem in this hemisphere.
Yeah.
Sorry, I went on a rant.
No, that's okay. I was trying to think of the other thing. The Louisiana Purchase. There's another thing, right?
Yeah.
And so this is not new, what the government's done or what the United States has done. For
Yeah,
anything.
Greenland is not its own country. It's a territory of Denmark.
Yes,
and Denmark
exactly.
Benefits greatly financially. I mean, Denmark is they've got their own problems financially, and they benefit greatly if we were to. And the benefit to us is that between United States, Canada, Alaska, Greenland, we have a defensive control,
Yes.
a defensive deterrent against China, which is really, I think, the biggest threat at the moment. I mean, you've got the alliance with Russia, China, Russia, North Korea,
Yep.
but the Chinese influence that's here in this hemisphere is, and I'm not saying Chinese. I'm talking about communist Chinese. I'm talking about the CCC,
Right.
the Communist Chinese Party. That influence in this hemisphere has got to be gotten a hold of.
Yes.
But that is the reason that Trump is making these statements, and he's doing it tongue in cheek in order to start those negotiations.
Yeah, and I think that's the right thing to do.
Right. And even if Greenland, there's the governor in Greenland who's like, we should become our own country. Well, that might be a viable option too, right? You become your own country, you join NATO, and we have this mutual aid agreement in the northern Western Hemisphere, right? So
Yeah.
So, anyway.
What else?
I don't know. I'm looking forward to 2025. I'm looking forward to the inauguration, and what it has to come. I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of chaos. I'm curious as to the number of leaks that come out of the White House after January 20th, because that was a big problem in Trump's first
Yeah, it
term.
was.
He didn't know who to trust. The leaks were coming fast and furious. Folks were betraying him left and right.
I don't think
He
that
knows
happens.
better. He knows better. He's got better people in charge. We're going to see a lot of unhinged snowflake speeches from Democrat senators during the approval process for all of his
Yeah,
cabinet
I
members.
hope this time they approve these cabinet members quicker. I mean, don't drag it out for 2 years. You know, we need some of
Unfortunately,
these people right away.
it's one of the key aspects of the rules of the Senate is that there are no time limits
Right.
on speeches. There are time limits on speeches in the House, but not in the Senate. So if a senator really wanted to, that's the filibuster, right?
Yep.
There's no time limits. You know, in the House they have the morning speeches where everybody gets 2 minutes, you
Right.
know, if you want them and whatnot. Those types of limits don't exist at the Senate. For a couple of different reasons. One being the Senate is smaller, so you can get through people quicker. But on the other side, it's that power play. I don't want to see the filibuster go away. But
No,
what I'm saying is
I
that
agree.
is the danger in dragging out all of these confirmation hearings.
Yeah, and I think there's some key people that need to be confirmed right away.
In key places, and we need
Yep.
like the FBI, the CIA, the State Department. You know, there are some.
State Department.
There are some
Definitely.
key things, and he really needs to be very careful about who he puts in the Pentagon. You know, Secretary of the Army, Secretary of the Navy, and
Yep.
who's going to be the Joint Chiefs.
So I saw Tulsi Gabbard talking to some people today, but I can't remember what he's got her in for.
I think Secretary of Defense.
Yeah, that's it. Secretary of Defense.
So these are key things that and these are good people that he's
Oh, yeah.
at least said verbally he's interested in, you know, for the FBI, the CIA, the DoD,
Yep.
the State Department. Hopefully that works. I'm disappointed in the whole Matt Gaetz situation. You know, he had his own issues, but he was a fierce fighter
That's his name.
and a fierce conservative, but he obviously has his own legal and personal troubles
Yeah.
to deal with. So I'm disappointed at that situation for the Attorney General. On the other hand, Gaetz I don't think he did it, right? They were already sworn in down there, right?
No, he resigned his position.
Yeah, but he resigned his position when he was still technically the representative elect.
No, but here's what'll happen. That seat's open. He'd have to run
Well,
again.
it's open if he didn't get sworn in. If he went
Right.
back to swearing in, right? But anyway, he had threatened to come back and get sworn in because he was still the representative elect, even though he resigned his last term.
Yeah, so here's what'll happen. You have DeSantis, who can appoint somebody for his seat.
No, I agree. But what he had threatened to do
Oh, was
was
to
to
come
come back, get sworn in, drop a bomb, and leave.
Oh.
And the bomb he was going to drop was to create to make a motion, and there's a certain type of motion that has to be voted on, right? And I can't remember what it was, but the idea was he was going to make a motion to disclose the slush fund and all of the payments out of that slush fund from Congress. Congress actually has a slush fund to defend members against sexual harassment.
Yeah.
Right? And they use it. It's literally millions of dollars. There are hundreds of congressmen and women who are in office now who make use of that fund, and we never hear about it.
First time I've heard about that.
You've never heard about it?
No, I haven't.
And so it's basically it's a defense fund. Hey, do you need somebody paid off to go away? We'll use this slush fund and do that for you. And so his threat was to come back and make a motion to have that thing go public. And so he didn't do it, but there's about 4 or 5 other GOP members who have said, you know what, that's a good idea. It's time to get rid of that thing. It's time to expose exactly who has been using this money and for what.
Yeah.
So there's actually a fund set aside specifically to defend Congress against sexual harassment charges. And apparently it's used profusely.
Wow.
So,
Wow, so maybe that's why.
I'd like to see that happen this year too. That doesn't mean I'm a perfect person, right? I mean, I've got skeletons. We've all got skeletons, but when you're in Congress, you don't abuse my tax dollars that way.
Yeah, we don't even know where half of it goes.
Right.
So.
But you have to be above reproach from an ethical standpoint, and there are a number of ethics issues, and so that whole business with Getz and the ethics has got to. That's got to come to light. So, anyway.
Yeah, I think you're right. We have more, but we're getting close to signing off here. So, what else do we need to know?
Well, there is this Saturday.
Oh, here you go. That's right.
Well, let's talk about it. So, I didn't say it at the beginning of the show. Our show, Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades, is sponsored by the Wilson Hill Pistol Club. It's the oldest sports shooting club in New Hampshire. It's located right here in Manchester at 1732 Lakeshore Road. Our monthly membership meeting is on the first Wednesday of every month at 7 p.m., except for this month, because the first of the month, the first Wednesday of the month was also a holiday, so we moved it to today. So our membership meeting is in 4 minutes at 1732 Lakeshore Road. It is open membership. We don't have a waiting list at Wilson Hill Pistol Club. Anyone's welcome to come and check it out and join. In addition to that, our website is wilsonhillpistolclub.org, and you can go there and sign up for training. You can theoretically see our calendar of events, which I apologize if the website's not working, but there is training this Saturday. It is the FAST handgun training, which is fundamentals and safety training, FAST. Basic pistol for ladies only. It is a ladies only basic pistol class. We occasionally do the ladies only thing. Because sometimes it is intimidating learning in a room full of testosterone-filled cowboys. So I'm not sure who's teaching the class, but if it's one of our instructors, we have several female instructors. You might have a male instructor, but the class itself is for ladies only.
Is there any cost to that? What's the cost of that?
I believe the cost is $125. But if you're a member of the club, there's a discount on all classes that take place at the club. So, so that's one of the benefits, is that you can take those types of trainings. We do, the FAST class is the most often taught class because we do encourage new firearms owners to take a class, and this is the class to take. Basic safety, basic handling, and basic home defense.
So before we sign off, next week we have Representative Wayne McDonald on.
Wayne McDonald.
And that'll be interesting because we also have the GOP state convention will be coming up, and they will choose a new chairperson. And so we'll talk to Wayne a little bit about that, seeing he was the chair of the party, and maybe get his input as, you know, maybe his favorite candidate. I already know who it is, but we'll let Wayne talk about that. He's supposed to be neutral, I think, but he's not in a position of state or where he can't. He has to be neutral. He doesn't have to be. Right. So it'll be interesting what he says there. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
Yep. So I was an elected rep to the convention. Back in 2005. It was fun.
Interesting,
Being a rep to the caucus,
delegate
and being able to vote on the party platform,
Yep.
and then they had guests.
Yes.
So they had our representatives, our Washington representatives at the time, and Rudy Giuliani came. Too.
Oh, nice.
So that
did you
was
have a
fun.
cigar with him?
I did not.
Oh, there you go.
So we have got to go. We will see you next week.
I'm sure the beautiful girls are all over the beaches walking around. I bet you the coconut tastes great. The pineapple tastes great. He's in some warm weather country while we're here in very warm New Hampshire.
Yes, it is warm.
Welcome, everybody, to a special edition of the